Hey y'all, howdy, welcome to One for the Books. I'm Sandy Broadwell, and today we're going to talk about new and noteworthy fantasy and sci-fi book releases for quarter three. So all of July, August, and September this year. I have 13 books to talk to you about, so let's dive in. Going in chronological order of release date, first up we have Eye of the Leviathan by M.A. Carrick. This is the duo author of the Rook and Rose trilogy, which I just read at the end of last year and finished up in January, and I absolutely loved that series. So I'm very excited to see what this author duo is going to do next. The Eye of the Leviathan is supposed to be set in an alternate Spanish Golden Age and is about a fae that has like body swapped or switched places with a human girl, and there's like seafaring involved. Honestly, like I just needed to hear M.A. Carrick and I'm on board. So this one comes out on July 14th, coming up very soon. At the end of July, on July 28th, we have a debut novel called Demon Star by Jesse Aragon, and the pitch for this was the otherworldly religious conflict of Dune, the cosmic strangeness of Gideon the Ninth, and the heart-pounding action of Red Rising converge in this horror-tinged epic science fantasy debut. Like, okay. Yeah, you got me there. I have read all of those comp titles and love them, and I am so stoked to see what this book has in store. So that one's high up for a debut novel, especially. That sounds so epic. Then on August 4th, we have The Eyes of Kings by Chloe Gong. This is the third and final book in the Flesh and False Gods trilogy, which started with Immortal Longings. I have not read anything by Chloe Gong, but I know that this will be a big priority for a lot of fantasy fans this year. Then on August 6th, we have a new release by Richard Swan, and it is not a part of his Empire of the Wolf world. He is the author of The Justice of Kings. This is his, as far as I know, first science fiction novel, and I'm very excited to see what he's going to do in a science fictional universe. The pitch for The Infinite State is basically there is a fascist regime and a woman who is basically trying to thwart it by setting up a democracy. Sounds like a great book for our era. The rest of the books I'm going to talk about are all September releases, so September is pretty stacked. Starting on September 1st, we have Engines of Reason by Adrian Tchaikovsky. This author just cranks them out. This is the second book in the Elder Race series, and I believe these are just novellas, so if you're looking for a good like sci-fantasy novella, I know Adrian Tchaikovsky rarely misses, so those sound like good ones to get into. Also on September 1st, we have Scion by James Islington. For those of you who don't know, James Islington is the author of the Licanius trilogy, as well as The Will of the Many, which has been popping off since that came out. I also am a big fan of The Will of the Many, and this is a John Wick meets Blade Runner cyberpunk thriller. So that sounds like a bangin' time, and I'm also excited to see what this author is going to do in a sci-fi space. Two books for September 8th. The first one is Massif by Garth Nix. Garth Nix is the author of Sabriel, which is a very, very popular YA novel from the early 2000s, and I don't know that this author has done a lot in recent years, so I'm excited to see what an adult sci-fi novel is going to look like from them. And all I know about this one is it seems like there are some sort of like intergalactic war and humans ride on these like sentient mountain ships. So a little bit out there maybe, but I'm excited to see what other people have to think about it. The other one for September 8th is Taipei Story by R.F. Kuang. And in true R.F. Kuang fashion, this is absolutely nothing like any of her other books. So this is actually not a fantasy or sci-fi release, but I thought it would be interesting to fantasy and sci-fi readers since so many of us are R.F. Kuang fans. This one, I believe, is just about a young woman who was originally from Taipei but has never really visited. She's part of the immigrant diaspora, and she goes back thinking that when she visits Taipei for like a semester that she will feel more at home there than she has previously, and it's complicated and maybe that's not true. So I think this is probably the one of her novels that sounds the least appealing to me. I did follow her along for Yellow Face, which was just like a contemporary thriller novel. Obviously not fantasy or sci-fi there either, and I thought that was fantastic. And so chances are I will probably still have a great time with High Pay Story, but it is the one so far that sounds least appealing to me. So we'll see how it goes. Also have 2 releases on September 15th, the first of which is Exit Party by Emily St. John Mandel. Emily is the author of Station 11 and Sea of Tranquility, The Glass Hotel. I've read 2 of her novels and really, really loved both of them, so I think I'm just gonna have a great time with probably anything that she puts out. And Exit Party, the pitch for this one is it's a novel about the price of safety, the perils of the surveillance state, a requiem for a world not unlike our own, and a breathtaking story of resilience in the face of cataclysmic change. So yeah, I don't think she can do wrong. I'm excited to get to experience it. The second one on September 15th is Deadbeat by Leigh Bardugo. This is the 3rd and final book of the Alex Stern trilogy, which started with Ninth House. I have not read Ninth House. I've actually never read anything by Leigh Bardugo, so I am definitely not in the zeitgeist for that, but Leigh Bardugo is very popular. These Ninth House books have been extremely well loved, and so I'm really hoping that she pulls off a fantastic end of the trilogy for all the fans. Then the last 3 books I have to talk about today are all releasing on September 29th. The first of which is a short story by Madeline Miller, and that is called Mestra. And this is the first release by Madeline Miller since Circe, which has been a number of years. Also the author of A Song of Achilles. I've read both of those novels. I loved them both. And so I'm disappointed that her new release is only going to be a short story, but it will be a delicious bite-sized read, I am sure, for this upcoming fall. And again, like her other novels, is, I believe, a Greek mythology retelling. Then we have The Unhaunting by Micaiah Johnson. This is actually a horror novel, but Micaiah Johnson is the author of The Space Between Worlds, which I read and really loved several years ago, and I believe this is her first horror novel, so I'm sure there will be other sci-fi fans that follow her into that genre. And the pitch for this one is, there's only one thing worse than a house that's haunted, a house that desperately wants to be. And I love that. So finally, the very last book for Q3 this year is Asterion by T. Kingfisher. This is a Baldur's Gate novel. So for fans of the Baldur's Gate 3 video game, which is based on the Dungeons and Dragons game, Asterion is a major character in that video game plot, and this is his prequel. It follows the events of his life up to the point of the start of the Baldur's Gate 3 video game. And I know that video game has won tons of awards and was like the video game of the year that it came out. So very excited for fans of that video game. And I know many of my husband and my brother and many other of my friends are huge fans. So I'm very excited. And I am excited also that it is a T. Kingfisher taking this on, because I really don't think that T. Kingfisher misses. So it's going to be a good time regardless. So those are all of the books that I think are going to be huge hits for fantasy and sci-fi fans in Q3. Let me know down in the comments below what I missed. I'm sure there's lots of other great fantasy and sci-fi books coming out over the next quarter, and which ones are you most excited about? Thanks so much for tuning in and hanging out for a little bit today. As always, please be kind, do good, and read more books. I'll see you again soon.